like raise your expectations. That's one of the takeaways here is don't ask the question like, are we fine? Because if you've been doing that for too long, well, you kind of know what the answer to that question is, right? Ask, are we really thriving? I think you said it really well. Do I love my marriage? That probably is a good way to ask it, or ask your own version of that question. Get back to prioritizing your marriage. Have the tough conversation about, is your marriage a priority? Hey, thanks for checking out the podcast today. We have an interesting topic today, one that we've talked about a lot recently, which is how just being okay in your marriage is really like not a good thing, right? There's probably a stereotype too of that question you get asked, like, oh, how's your marriage? You know, if you've got close friends or family or people that care about you that ask you that, oh, we're good, we're fine. We're going to get into that today.
Yeah, I mean, I think when somebody says, oh, we're fine, yeah, we're good. And of course, someone could say that when really they're great. And that's just
Making
like
small talk.
Yeah. So it's not like 100% if you say, oh, we're fine, that things aren't great. But I think if you actually do mean that and you're fine, that can really mean you're just kind of going through the motions. You're working well together, but there's not much more to it.
Right.
Maybe there's like a lack of conflict. You're getting by. Yeah, that's kind of what comes to my mind with
you're not
being
really
fine.
like thriving. And I think that's like, if you've listened to the podcast before, I mean, that's what we're all about, right? Is not just surviving marriage. And maybe that's the way I would describe it, is it's sort of like well, you said it well, getting by, I think, is a perfect way. And I'll kind of anchor on a statistic. We've talked about this several times in the podcast, several times in our book, but I think it's definitely worth repeating, is that the divorce rate kind of hovers around 40%, like recently. I would say recent years, 42%, I think the last statistic we had. So 4 out of 10 are divorced. And then out of the remaining marriages, 6 out of 10 claim to be unhappy based on a survey that we've cited before. So
that's sad.
I think, to me, maybe you could make the argument like those 6 people wouldn't say that they're fine. But I think for the most part, like there's this boredom stereotype, right? That marriage is like stale and outdated and boring. And once you hit certain points, it just loses any type of excitement, right?
If 6 out of 10 of the remaining are unhappy, I wonder what percent would actually say, like, we are so happy, we love being married, marriage is amazing, it's so great, wouldn't change a thing. I mean, not that you'd never change a thing, but like, how many? And then what percentage are like, oh yeah, we're fine, like we're talking about.
Yeah.
That's interesting thought.
One, I think, maybe talking to the guys out there, how many times has your wife asked you, how are you doing, or how was your day? And you say, fine. Or even, our oldest daughter, as she gets older, and kind of approaching the teenage years, it's like, can you give me something more than that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, don't just say...
You're not allowed to say that to me.
I know, I'm not. But, the word itself implies like you're either or you're covering up something that is going on that you're just not wanting to talk about, right? So I think it's like the proof is in the pudding, wouldn't you say?
I would even say, like what you shared, one of our kids getting in the car after school and saying, how was your day? It was fine. Typically, there's something negative there that later they end up telling me. They just didn't realize how they were actually doing. So I think that can be, and we'll get into that, like the danger of being fine is that you're not really aware.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's
I think that's a great way to put it. I think that's a great way to put it. You talk about busy schedules. You're balancing a career. Those of you with kids, you're balancing like their schedules, their responsibilities, just parenting them in general, no matter what age your kids are, is a task in itself. So you're trying to juggle, if you're involved in church or in groups outside of the house, like whatever it looks like, you can suddenly wake up and find yourself at whatever, year point it is in your marriage and think like, man, you look around and like we just celebrated our 14th anniversary this last week, and you blink and it's been years. And if you're not consciously putting in the work to like stay healthy and strong and committed to one another and having an enjoyable marriage, back to your point a couple minutes ago, I think this is maybe it's the less extreme end of what could happen, obviously, but I think that's the point we're making, is like that's a dangerous spot to be, right? Where you've just kind of plateaued. Yeah. And then you can sit there. And honestly, you can sit there for a really long time, right?
Yeah. And I think your marriage being fine can definitely be a red flag. Because most marriages don't just go from great and amazing to divorce overnight.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's more of like amazing to good to okay to fine to now we're totally disconnected.
Mhm.
And what are we doing kind of a
Yeah.
thought. I think
I
people
agree.
wake up and they're like, this isn't, this stinks.
Yeah.
You know, it's a
It's a
slow
slow, yeah,
process.
slow erosion. Yeah,
I
that's a good
think,
point.
I think it can when there's other factors going on where maybe you got married for all the wrong reasons and it
Mhm.
never really was great. It can go from
Bad quick.
okay to bad really fast like that.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about that in this episode. We're talking about it was good or really great. And then it just slowly eroded over
Mhm.
time to that fine place
Yeah, and
or
I think
fine kind of a
I
place.
actually think there's a good connection to what we talked about last week around sexless marriages and how, to
Hmm.
me, I think there's some correlation here too, right? Like those marriages that are fine, like you're kind of bordering on like a good gut check is like, how's your intimacy? Like
Mm-hmm.
if you really are fine in the sense of the word that it could be positive, that's maybe a good check. But you think
Yeah.
the deep conversations have probably disappeared, date nights have probably disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing the fun things that you used to enjoy doing together. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you don't even see each other that much or spend a lot of
Mm-hmm.
time together. And you did a great job talking about this on a former episode. Like, do you even miss the person when you're not near them? That's another, kind of spot check
Mm-hmm.
on this too
Mm-hmm.
is, if your spouse travels a lot for work or whatnot, or if maybe your work schedules are
Yeah.
just out of balance, does it bother you at all?
And one thing to mention, there may not be any conflict in these fine, we're fine type of marriages. That doesn't mean you have a great marriage just because you're doing things well and you're not having
Yeah,
conflict and you're getting
that's good.
along.
Yeah,
That's not the indicator of a great thriving marriage,
right. I think
you know.
that's a good point. One thing I think we've also talked about is this concept of as long as you avoid divorce. And I think that's kind of a popular viewpoint in the
Mhm.
Christian circles, which we are obviously proud followers of Christ. But in terms of like morals and values, I find that very interesting. Like the goal should never be
Mm.
like to have a long marriage where you didn't get divorced. Your goal should be to have an incredible marriage that lasts a long time, right?
Yeah.
There's a difference. Avoiding divorce
So true.
could put you in this fine bucket for decades, but you're not actually
Yeah.
having an enjoyable time with your spouse in your life. And I
Mhm.
think it's not okay.
Think about how many couples we've met where they've been married 20, 30, 40 years. And it's like, oh, wow, that's such a great achievement. But the reality is, they just avoided getting divorced. And some of them would be like, oh, I wish I could have got divorced, but
Hmm.
we had to please God and we had to do the right thing. So we've stayed married. Or, no joke, they stay married for their kids. But
Yeah.
now they're staying married. They're old and they're staying married for the grandkids and for the
Hmm.
holiday get togethers and for the birthday party. Like, this is a real thing. But
Hmm.
they've never actually thrived.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, maybe they're not having a lot of conflict. Maybe they're doing their tasks well, because I think that's another thing with like a fine marriage is like we work well together,
They cohabit
we
together. Yeah.
cohabitate, we got our schedules locked in. You do what you do, I do what I do. Like we're okay. We've kind
Mm-hmm.
of accepted that there's no deep connection or intimacy or closeness. Like we're just living our lives separate.
Yeah.
Where it's not like toxic or chaotic. I mean, I think that's pretty toxic, but like chaotic and high
Hmm.
conflict and hatred. It's just like
It's okay.
boring,
Yeah.
getting by.
They can make that work too. I think that's one of the
Yeah.
points you're making is that you're just a roommate and it works and you get along and everything's okay.
And I think that could be the most dangerous place to be
Hmm.
because if you think about it, like a couple in crisis, they know that there's a big problem.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
like, okay, we got to figure this out. We got
Yep.
to do something about it. If you're heading toward divorce, you know it's broken.
Right.
And maybe this is a good opportunity. Okay, we're going to get this figured out.
That's a good point. Yeah.
But like the people who are fine.
Yeah. Can keep staying there, can keep going. Yeah. I mean, I think the couples that gradually drift apart, to your point, a lot of those do end up in divorce. So it's almost like the two outcomes. Well, there's three outcomes, I would say. I'll start with the positive. You acknowledge this, which we're going to get into a little bit. You acknowledge this. You have the conversations and have the conversations now, not years into the future, not when the kids are a little older, not, well, it's not bad. Let's just see what happens. And if the marriage corrects itself, it's not going to.
Yeah.
You got to put in the work to have the discussion. Anyway, you get the point. We'll come back to that one. So I think it's number one, it gets corrected because of effort. Number two, you kind of just stay fine. Like to your point, you can absolutely stay this way and live out the rest of your marriage and be the couple that's in their 70s and they're okay. There's no big issues, but it's not great. Or the third one, which I think is pretty common, is that those slow rifts become a bit wider and wider and wider. And then suddenly one of you wakes up and is like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. And you give up. And so I think.
And those people, I would argue, they're probably the ones who are like, oh, why'd you get divorced? Oh, we just fell apart. Or, oh, we just we're still friends. We get along. And if they still have young children, oh, we co-parent well.
Right.
So it wasn't like a big blow up or an infidelity or like horrible conflict. But the sad thing is those people got married. They were in love for the most part. They were happy. So what happened? Why did they end up that way? And I think what you put in our notes, I love about research showing couples who intentionally invest in friendship, communication, and shared experiences have significantly higher marital satisfaction.
Yeah.
So I think those things must have shifted significantly or little by little from where they started out.
Yeah, and I think maybe even a couple questions. We'll take a gut check here for a minute, like halfway through the episode. Couple quick questions for you to think about. When was the last time you had a meaningful conversation with your spouse? Not logistics, not kids, not what do you want to do this weekend, not does this sound good for dinner, but meaningful conversation. When was the last time you laughed together, like actually had fun? And then are you intentionally pursuing your spouse? And then I would even throw in one to plug last week's episode. What's your intimacy like? Are you intimate the way you had been at one point in the past? And I think the answers to those questions, I'll let you respond to that. The answers to those questions, like, will sort of tell you if you're in danger, if you're in a bad position, if you're fine, or if you're doing well.
Yeah, and I would even add, like, then this is part of the inspiration for why we're even doing this in the first place is, do you love being married? There's one thing to be like, oh yeah, I'm married. And then it's another thing to say, I love being married to you. You're the best. I am so happy every day that I'm married. And when I'm not with you, I miss you. I'm excited to see you again. We have meaningful, deep conversations like all the time. We know each other's like fears and dreams, and we'll get into that. But like, we have fun. It's exciting versus like the fine marriage is very boring. And there's disconnection. So asking yourself, do I love to be married to my partner? Do I ever wish I wasn't? I think that's another question.
Wow. Yeah,
like, I'll
good.
be completely honest. And maybe I think some people can judge someone when they're like, oh, you don't know what it's like. I've never not wanted to be married to you since we've been married.
Yeah.
And you can think, oh, what do they know? Well, I think that means we know a whole lot because we've made it 14 years, never wishing we weren't married.
Right.
And if you have wished you weren't married, or you wish that right now, there's like, we're not shaming you. The question is figuring that out so you can do something about it to make that change.
Yeah.
Well,
that's the goal. I think it reminded me to anchor on that. Like the goal is not, and I think you did a good job of saying like that is our purpose of the podcast as a whole. The goal is not to, and we talked a little bit about in our notes here, the goal should not be to live your life together, pay the bills, raise the kids, do the thing, and not get divorced and avoid conflict. That should not be the goal. The goal should be exactly what Jamie's outlining here, which is we want everyone listening to love being married, to love their marriage in the good times and the bad, by the way, because I think to your point, in 14 years, 3 kids, like we've gone through, we're not going to get into all that on this episode, but we've sparingly talked about it throughout or on the website or whatever, but we've gone through a lot of different challenges in pretty much every possible topic, even in recent years, like with some serious grief over loss, like we have walked through a lot. And to the point you're making, like the goal is that you get through those difficult times and you're better for it and you're stronger for it. So I think it's not
And
this like, let's just survive.
when you're happy, when you love being married, you're deeply connected, you're close friends, you can be your true self and you feel accepted and loved, and you're more capable of going through those hard times together. And I even think of like years long challenges like health and loss and things like you're mentioning, still having a great time with you, like still enjoying it, still connecting, still growing, still enjoying being married.
Yeah. Throughout all that.
In spite of it. Because I think some people would say, oh, you're just happy because you haven't gone through anything hard. No,
Yeah.
that's not true at all. So, and it's not because of avoiding hard things either. And this is key to not just be fine. You got to hit things head on. You have to be, and I think that's something from the beginning, like of our marriage. I always remember having that fear in the beginning, like, oh no, what if things change? Because they were so great in the beginning. What if suddenly I wake up and it's not as good?
I remember that.
I had
now.
that fear. I remember telling you that and thinking it was like that fear helped me, because sometimes fear can help us.
That's good.
It helped me to be aware, highly aware of anything that seemed to slip. Where just, oh, I feel like there's some tension, or I feel like we're not as close, or I feel like we're not having as much fun, or we're not talking, and not just settling and being like, oh, that's normal, that happens, but being like, what's going on? Why? Can we talk about this? Can we figure this out? And I've always said that you have to be on the offense, you're not just waiting for something bad.
Yeah.
You're on the offense. You're paying attention. You're looking around, making sure that things are as strong as they were.
Yeah.
Or getting stronger, because that should be happening. It should be getting better and stronger as you go.
It should. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's helped us a lot.
I'm glad you brought that up, because obviously we didn't talk about bringing that point up, but I think it's good that you did, because if I can reflect back on that, because I do remember exactly what you are talking about when you were going through some of that early on, I would say within the first couple of years.
Yep.
My perspective, if any of you out there can relate, like my perspective at first was like, I did find that pretty obnoxious, if I'm being honest. Like you know that, obviously, but I'm not as much in tune with my feelings or wanting to acknowledge my feelings as you are, obviously. And so I would get pretty frustrated, like, just be in the moment. Why are you so worried about what could or couldn't happen in the future? Like, let's just enjoy being married and think of it that way. However, I got to say, like, looking back at it now, all these years later, I think you cared about it. You were concerned about it. You were bothered at the thought of something happening. And the fact that you brought it up to me and you asked me a lot about how I was feeling, whether I was annoyed or not in the moment, because I just acknowledged that. But my point that I'm making is I think it forced me to think about it, and probably did like subconsciously play a role in like me being more aware of like how we were doing, what we were focused on, any negativity. So yeah, just acknowledge that. Like, I think the point you're making around having the tough conversations, if one of you is resonating with what Jamie's saying, you owe it to yourself and to your partner to say like, hey, I've got some fears, I've got some worries, I've got some doubts, I've got whatever going on. And yeah, it might result in an ugly conversation for sure. But you know what?
Yeah. Or just something feels off.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like it did. What do you think it is? You're going to find out if you explore and you're curious and you dig in.
I agree.
And so when you attack it like that, those hard moments are like where it feels off, they don't last very long.
Right.
Because you hit it head on.
Right.
You don't let it linger. And people who are fine, they let those things linger.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I want to bounce like a little off topic here for a minute. You talked a couple minutes ago there about walking through hard times. And I think that does resonate with listeners out there. Maybe some of you are thinking like, yeah, you don't understand where I'm at. You don't understand what we're going through. We got X, Y, Z going on or whatever. I would just say that's where, to me, and I think this is a learned behavior, right, is you have to be flexible and adaptable. Your life, when we got married in our early to mid 20s, and life looked different then than it did 2 years after that, than it did 2 years after that, than it does now, zooming 10 years from there. Like, life, we've gone through a lot of different things. And I think the encouragement, whether you're early married or you're in kind of those middle years with kids like we are, or you're coming through a lot and you're kind of more seasoned in your marriage than Jamie and I are. The point is, you have to be adaptable as a person, but also as a couple. You cannot expect, if you are sitting on the beach on the weekend right now with not a care in the world because you don't have kids yet and you don't have the life stresses of people that are several years ahead of you, embrace that, enjoy it, but don't expect that exact same thing to then be present, 5 years later, 10 years later, when your life looks completely different. And I do think, and I want your thoughts on this too, for you to weigh in. I think that drags a lot of people down, is this fixed mindset. We've talked about that in a previous episode too, this fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. I think a growth mindset in your marriage is like, okay, let's adapt to the new way of life. Do you know what I mean? Whether that's income, whether you're broke and now you have a lot, whether it's you don't have any kids and you have 100% flexibility to do what you want to do. And then fast forward and you got 2 or 3 kids.
So,
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm having like 300 different thoughts in my mind right now, trying to like lock them all down. So I think, number one, this is why you marry the person. You don't get married for the marriage experience, because
that's good.
Things change. So you want to make sure you're with the right person from the get-go. And then another thought coming to my mind is, okay, when we were like really low income in the beginning, we had to adapt. Like, I remember we couldn't go out to nice dinners all the time, even though we didn't have kids yet. So we would get cheap frozen pizzas and boxed wine and sit at our cheap table that we bought for like $50. And it was so much fun. Fast forward a few years, we could go out to nice restaurants and we could enjoy our time like that. And then, or even before kids, we could go sit on the beach because that's free, for the most part. So I think, like, say you like to travel and that's a way that you connect, and then you have kids. The danger is, oh, now we have small children. We just can't do that. And then you adapt to this boredom versus saying, okay, we can still go travel with our small kids. It might look different than it did before. We might have to do it a little differently. We might have to go to different types of places, but we can still do it in a new way. So finding new ways to enjoy what you always enjoyed.
Or even just a counterpoint to that, because a minute ago you were making the comment about don't fall in love with the experience, fall in love with the person. That's a good example. If your love for someone is so tied to one specific aspect of them or something you do together, and then that thing is changed or gone. I mean, it's kind of like the extreme example, like a gold digger philosophy, right? Like someone marries someone for their money and then the money's gone and suddenly we're not in love anymore. I know I'm kind of being funny on purpose, but I think the concept of that is a real thing, Like, you love your life before kids, and then when you have kids, you're like, wait, suddenly Saturday mornings aren't fun anymore because we can't just sleep in and do whatever we want. Well, then do you you need to work on that. Like, do you really love the person? Do you really love your spouse? Do you really love the life you've built together? Or did you love like that period of time?
I love that.
And I think you got to ask those questions.
That's why the whole being fine is so important. Like, what do you love about this person? And things have changed. So how can you create something new based on that? New experiences and go deep and connect and communicate and have fun and be friends. That's like key for not just being fine.
Right. I agree.
And
I think maybe to push you all listening, like, raise your expectations. That's one of the takeaways here from us. Is don't ask the question like, are we fine? Because if you've been doing that for too long, well, you kind of know what the answer to that question is, right? Ask, are we really thriving? I think you said it really well. I almost don't even need to say anything there. Like, do I love my marriage? That probably is a good way to ask it, or ask your own version of that question. Get back to prioritizing your marriage. I think in life in 2026, with how many distractions we have and how busy everybody is, like we prioritize a lot of things in our life, whether it's fitness, whether it's career, whether it's finances, whether it's our kids. Those of you with kids, the kids can kind of take that number one spot.
Yeah.
I think have the tough conversation about, is your marriage a priority, and are you enjoying being married right now?
And I think another annoying thing, probably more so in the Christian circle, is don't talk about divorce. And so you might think, well, we don't ever talk about divorce. We're never going to talk about divorce. How about talk about how your connection is?
Yeah.
How close are you? How happy are you? And I hate, there's another phrase, holy versus happy. No, God wants both. Holy means set apart, not perfect. So like he wants you to be set apart in your marriage while also enjoying your marriage. He says, become one flesh. Like that to me signifies deep, close connection and like really being known and knowing one another in a meaningful way and enjoying life. Jesus says, I came to give you life and give it to you abundantly. That to me is enjoyment. You're enjoying the life he gave you for his glory and doing his work as a couple. Fine marriages, they're not doing God's work together, or they're each doing their own thing. Again, there's a lot of separateness when you're fine. There's not a lot of like coming together and enjoying the calling and the purpose of your marriage together. I think that's a key.
And on that point, one thing we've talked about a lot, I love that you're bringing this up, is, does an okay marriage glorify God? Like, I really want to challenge you listening to think about that. If that's what you're convinced, like, well, we're not divorced, what's the problem? Like, yes, we're following God. No, you're not. I would go as far as to say, you are not following God's will, because God's will doesn't put that as a success metric. Like, oh, if you don't quit and give up, even though you quit and gave up, technically speaking, you just on paper are still together. Like that is not glorifying God. That does not draw people to Christ. That does not make single people want to be married and follow Jesus and have a family. That drives them actually the other way. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I love what you just said. Like, oh, we didn't give up, but you've given up within the marriage, and that matters too. It's not just we didn't sign the papers and get divorced. It's we've given up within this thing that God designed. That is so good. So what do we do here? I think a key is you have to prioritize your marriage again. You might be investing in your career, in your health and fitness, in your children, but your marriage is like last on the list. So that needs to change. You got to put a priority. Don't give your marriage leftovers. That should be at the top. And this requires intentional investment. So what are some things you think people could do to intentionally invest?
I mean, I think
go from fine to thriving.
I think happy. Maybe, and that's a good chance to like recap too a little bit. I think it starts with acknowledgement that you kind of have a problem. And one question I'm going to ask, I will answer your question, but if your marriage stayed the way that it is today for 20 more years, think about that. Like, thought-provoking question. If it stayed the same, would you be okay with that 20 years in the future? If you're a 30-year-old listening to this and at 50, marriage is going to be where it is today in terms of like, obviously things around you changing, but are you cool with that? That to me gives you like a line in the sand of like, okay, where are we on the fine spectrum? So I think it's acknowledgement first of where you're at. Have the conversation, number two. And then I think it's going back to all the things that made you fall in love and get married to begin with. It's going on dates. It's having meaningful conversations. It's laughing together. It's having fun. It's being spontaneous. I think finding your purpose. Like, I think there's a lot of things that you really need to reignite.
Well, and I love what you just said about having meaningful conversation. That goes beyond logistics, beyond the facts, beyond, don't forget to take little Jimmy to his soccer practice tonight. It's discussing your dreams, your goals, your faith together, challenges, how you actually think and feel, being open in your communication and honest. Sharing new experiences together. You know,
I think too, one thing I definitely don't want to miss, you got to invite God into this process. That should almost come after you do your like inventory of how you feel like you're at with your marriage. You need to pray about this. You need to really seek God independently, but also together as a spouse. We would advocate that you partner together and pray together, make it a commitment that, hey, we're going to pray through this challenging time in our marriage. And by the way, like even back to the hard times when you go through those tough times in your marriage, because everybody does, God's got to be a central piece to that, right? So
Yeah. And just pray and ask Holy Spirit, reveal, where are we complacent?
yeah.
What should be different? What needs to change? And he will reveal, he'll show.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's happened for me where I'm like, how can I be a better wife, God? What am I missing? Like, is there anything I need to do differently? And just being willing to listen to him when he shows you and then obey
Yeah.
and
I think
make the
that's good.
changes that need to be made. Yeah. Or is there boredom? What could we do to have fun? Like, God cares about all the areas of your life, even stuff like that.
Well, and I think not accepting, that's a great point about boredom. I think not accepting that, because we've been there. Like there's definitely times where we just had friends over the other day that have a newborn, and they were kind of making jokes about how hard it is to even leave the house.
Yeah.
Like you go from going wherever you want, when you want to go to then when you got a newborn, like everything changes. And it's like, I felt like it was a good conversation with them even about that's the phase of life that you're at right now. And so regardless of where you're at with your ages and your kids and where your life stage is, I think when you feel the boredom, you talk about it, you find new ways of doing things.
Yeah. Well, hold on. They were a great example of what we're talking about, because
For sure.
she was saying we love to travel. And I'm pretty sure she said we've met people who are like, oh, you won't be able to do that anymore. And that they were both like, yes, we will. As soon as our baby's old enough, we're traveling with the baby.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, I love
That's
that.
awesome.
Like, get out
Yeah.
there and do it. Because don't give up on things and let yourself stay. But I love your point. For a little time, you got to just accept, like, this is where we're at.
Right.
But then what can we do to make sure we don't stay stuck and lose who we are?
And be adaptable, like we talked
be
about earlier.
adaptable.
You got to be willing to flex a little bit. I think, to recap, then you can bring us into the homework, but to recap, your marriage can survive being fine. Like, for the record, you can absolutely continue to have a long marriage that doesn't end in divorce as a fine couple. It can be done, right? So our challenge would be, ask yourself that tough question about, if that was the case, would you be happy? I think the other thing is, like, don't settle. We talked a lot about that in this episode. Like, don't just take it. Don't accept that that's the fate that you've been dealt. Like, really push yourself and challenge yourself. And if you don't do that, you really miss out on the incredible blessing that God has for your marriage, because we do believe, like, you can truly, no matter who you are, or what you've been through, or what your relationship is like now, it's possible for you to love being married and enjoy that. Yeah. So what are some action steps to...
Yeah, I mean, something you and I kind of talked about, which I think is pretty cool, is to kind of like rate various areas of your marriage separately. So each of you separately. And what we kind of came up with was 1 to 10. Where do you feel like things are at right now with communication, friendship, intimacy, fun, spiritual connection, conflict resolution? And on the intimacy, that would be physical and emotional. So intimacy, and you could even say like the spiritual connection, that all these things are intimacy and different aspects of intimacy.
Yeah.
So 0 to 10, where do you feel like it is? And then come back together, talk about what you rated each area at and what that means to you. Because you could be at a 5 and your partner's at a 5 in the same area, but that could mean something completely differently. That's where the open communication, talk about it. What does that mean to you that we're at a 5 in communication? And then the question I would encourage you to ask is, what could help bring this up even just to a 6? So like, what is something that can be done that we can get that number up?
I like that. Yeah.
You know, so, and listen, this could lead to a little bit of conflict. That's okay. Conflict's healthy. Maybe you get upset. Be open to hearing where your partner's coming from on where they think, because this is what they think, where they think the marriage is at. Don't try to argue with them. And say, no, you're wrong. We're not at a 4 there. Well, that's what they're feeling. So validate it and then figure out what needs to be done.
Okay. No, that's good. And I think lastly, like, just be committed that change is possible. Like we hit this one hard before in previous episodes in the book. We are firm believers, like, accepting where you're at is like a nail in the coffin. Be determined that, no, I'm not going to accept this. I'm going to be committed to change if it requires change, and move forward. So hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks for hanging with us today, and have a great week.
And subscribe if this helped you in some way. It share it with your friends.
Definitely.